o'clock, so I will call the order with this huge crowd that we have here. This meeting of the Noblesville Common Council. Mr. Ayer, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lees, will you call the roll?
Mr. Ayer.
Present.
Mr. Boyce.
Present.
Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. O'Connor. Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Sparks.
Present.
Ms. Wiles.
Present.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the executive session memorandum from July 26th.
Move to approve. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the memorandum from the executive session. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Next is approval of the minutes from the July 26, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from July 26. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Approval of the agenda.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move that we amend the agenda to postpone proposed development presentations number 1 and 2 to our next meeting. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to amend the agenda to move the proposed development presentations number 1 and number 2 to our next regularly scheduled meeting. So, all those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. Petitions or comments by citizens who are present. I do not have any cards, but if anyone would like to speak, please fill out the card in the back and bring it up to the clerk. Council committee reports. First committee report would be the Roads Committee. Mr. Boyce.
Yes, so on the 5th of this month, just last Friday, Roads Committee met. Mr. O'Connor and myself were both present. We have many items to discuss, but I will hit just a few. First, the Hamilton County project of Allisonville Road. Just so everyone knows, that's been moved back just a slight bit. It is now going to be closed for 3 months, anticipated in 2023. Right now, they're trying to make it sometime in between July 4th and the Headless Horseman on October 31st. So that's kind of what their goal is as of right now. For State Road 32 and 38, thank you for everyone's patience trying to get through there right now with the roundabouts closed. We do have signage as things change, and we are trying to change everything on Google in order to help people that are routing through there and everything. But we know that's a little bit of a pain, but we're doing everything we can to get that through and get it done by the end of the year. So for the next thing, the Oakmount roundabout, I know that's something that's been talked about a ton. Just so everyone knows, because of utilities and some other issues, and that is now going to be pushed back. It will start in the late fall of next year, 2023, and be completed in the spring of 2024. And the last thing is the reduced conflict intersection at State Road 37 on 186th Street. Construction will likely be in 2023, hopefully in the spring of next year, to try and reduce some of the accidents that we have out there.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Boyce and the Roads Committee? We'll move on to the Finance Committee. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. We met August 4th, myself, Greg O'Connor, Darren Peterson, and Aaron Smith. Mike Howard discussed with us reimbursement authorization for Phase 2 and 3 of East-West Corridor Project. Ms. Lees discussed Riverside Cemetery burial fees increasing. And Aaron Head discussed with us a fiscal action for additional appropriation for a gateway arch in downtown Noblesville. Mr. Spalding discussed the 2023 revenue forecast preview. That and the claims come to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Davis and the Finance Committee?
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move that we approve the claims as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the claims as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Previously discussed ordinance. Council to consider ordinance number 51-07-22, an ordinance annexing approximately 34 acres south of State Road 32, Westfield Road, and east of Hazeldale Road to be known as Midland Point Plan Development in Noblesville Township. Ms. Shelton, good evening.
Good evening. Again, this was introduced at your last meeting. It is an annexation of approximately 34 acres for a project to eventually be known as Midland Point. It is a super voluntary annexation. It is set for public hearing this evening, and hopefully after that, adoption.
Any questions of Ms. Shelton? Seeing none, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith,
seeing no one from the public come forward, I move that we close the public hearing for ordinance number 51-07-22.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for ordinance 51-07-22. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith,
I move that we approve ordinance number 51-07-22.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 51-07-22 as presented. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Lees.
Mr. Aaron,
Aye.
Mr. Boyce,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Sparks,
Aye.
Ms. Wiles.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay, the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. New ordinances for discussion. Council to consider ordinance number 31-05-22A, an ordinance amending ordinance number 31-05-22 and section 11.01 of the city's code of ordinances to correct a scrivener's error. Mr. Hughes.
Madam President, members of the
We need
council.
a- Sorry,
Move to introduce.
Second.
sorry. Mr.
That's
Hughes.
okay. Madam President, members of the council, wonderful to see you this evening. At the first meeting of July, you adopted the redistricting ordinance that we discussed over several months. Nothing has changed with respect to the map of that ordinance, but upon presentation of that ordinance to the county clerk, noted that there was an error, and the scrivener's error, basically a typo, that the map correctly included Wayne Precinct 7 in District 6, but that it was not in the list that we actually put into the ordinance. And so this ordinance just cleans that up and includes Wayne 7 there. There's no change to the redistricting, it just includes the list to match the map. And so with that, and because it shouldn't be controversial, I would request, if the board would entertain it, that we suspend the rules and adopt this on first reading this evening. And I can answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions of Mr. Hughes?
Madam President,
Mr. Smith,
I move that we waive the rules and approve ordinance number 31-05-22A on its first reading.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to waive the rules and approve ordinance number 31-05-22A on first reading. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith,
I move that we approve ordinance number 31-05-22A.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 31-05-22A. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Boyce,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Sparks,
Aye.
Mr. Aaron,
Aye.
Ms. Wiles.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay, the ordinance is approved.
Thank you. Council to consider ordinance number 44-07-22, an ordinance approving additional appropriations in the Downtown Development Fund for the East Alley Gateway Arch and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Mr. Spalding.
Madam President, members of the council, Jeff Spalding, CFO and Controller, and the ordinance before you fairly simple and straightforward. It's for funding a project in the downtown, as described in the title. It's a decorative gate for the East Alley, and this is just appropriating funds from the Downtown Development Fund, which is money that the council has already set aside for improvements downtown, and it's coming from the balance of that fund that hasn't been spent from monies collected in previous years, and it's a request to appropriate $40,000 for up to $40,000 for that work. I don't have a lot of detail behind the specific aspects of the gate, but other members of the council do, and any of the funds that are appropriated here that are unspent on that project will just stay in the fund. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to field them.
Is a portion of this reimbursed by a grant? Which grant is that?
The actual, there's been a lot of discussion around that, and I don't know all of the details of the grant, but in essence, what it is there is a grant that is helping support alley activation downtown, and as long as the city spends X amount of dollars, the grant will contribute dollars. So really, this is matching the grant funds, so this is leveraging the grant funds. The grant funds aren't funding this, but it's making them available for other costs for alley activation work.
Other questions of Mr. Spalding? We need to establish a public hearing.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith?
I move that we establish a public hearing for ordinance number 44-07-22 at our next regular meeting.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing for ordinance number 44-07-22 at our next regular meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Great, thank you.
Council to consider ordinance number 52-08-22, an ordinance amending ordinance number 52-12-19 and section 34.08 of the city's code of ordinances concerning fees for Riverside Cemetery.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Ms. Lees.
Good evening. This ordinance is following through on something that was decided in 2019. In 2019, the fees for the cemetery were increased for the first time since 2004. At that time, the fees were so low that some felt they should be raised even more. But we decided to take a stepped approach so that it wouldn't be a huge increase all at once. We doubled them in 2019. We've restored the cemetery now. Now it's time to raise them again, as was planned a few years ago. So that's the only change to anything at the cemetery. We are basically doubling the fees, but they are still by far the lowest in the area. So.
Any
Happy
questions?
to answer any questions.
I just want to comment, the cemetery looks beautiful. It's not the best idea for a date night, but if you get a chance to see it, they really did a nice job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Miscellaneous item number 1, council to consider resolution number RC-38-22, a resolution permitting reimbursement of project cost for phases 2 and 3 of the East-West Corridor project. Mr. Howard.
Thank you. This is the first step in financing phase 2 and 3 and those costs of the Pleasant Street project. It sounds a little strange to be doing the first step in 2 and 3 and we still haven't bid phase 1. That bid is expected to occur on September, I believe, the 13th, Ally. And we will, given the climate of construction costs, I think everyone, especially Ally, will breathe much better when those numbers are before us. But this resolution allows us to start like we did in phase 1 with the reimbursement resolution, which because we're using lease financing, if we're going to reimburse ourselves from bond proceeds for any of the cost incurred, we have to have this resolution in place. And we've done this for phase one. What it does, it gives us flexibility and allows engineering to start down the road with preliminary design and survey and those other costs as quickly as possible. When you pass the reimbursement resolution for phase one, we weren't into double-digit inflation, and we had no idea how important it was to compress the timeline on these projects as much as possible. We understand that now, so we're doing the same thing to allow funds used from any available source, and we meet every 2 weeks, and Jeff tries to find out if there's a bucket here or a bucket there to pay certain costs. But this resolution allows Ally to greenlight some of those survey design and even some appraisals before we do the next step, which would be a bond anticipation note for phase 2 and 3, and that bond anticipation note is expected to close in October. So again, just financial flexibility to compress the timeline and try to get shovels in the ground and finish project as soon as possible. And with that, I'll stop and answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Howard?
Madam President,
Mr. Smith?
I move that we approve Resolution RC-38-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-38-22 as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good to be here again, and unfortunately, you're going to see a lot more of me in the next few months.
Thanks. Council to consider Resolution RC-39-22, a resolution concerning the acquisition of real estate. Jonathan Murga?
Good evening and thank you. Honorable members of the council and Madam Chair, I'm here to speak to you with regards to the acquisition of a parcel of land, a 3/4 of an acre parcel of land adjacent to property owned by the utility today, and that is within the long-term growth plan of the plant. The appraisals were prepared, 2 appraisals over the time. One had expired, and we'd gotten a renewed appraisal, and both of them were in line with one another. And the second appraisal was for $47,000 even, and it was accepted by the property owner. And do I make the motion?
Any questions of Mr. Murga?
Madam President,
Mr. Smith?
I move to approve Resolution RC-39-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-39-22 as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. That is it for our agenda this evening. Are there any council comments?
Real quick, I'd like to thank our Parks Department, Health Department, Main Street, or not Health Department, Main Street, Street Department, Police Department, Neighborhood Department helped to make our street dance as successful as it was. It seemed to go smooth. The next morning, everything was nice and clean, and there were a lot of people having a very good time.
Great. Anyone else? It just goes along with your comments, Mr. Ayers, if you can't find something to do in Noblesville, you're not looking very hard, because there's always something going on.
That's true.
Okay. With that, then we will be adjourned for this evening.